Hey, it's Annette here, and I'm with Renee Rivera. And today
Hi,
we're going
everyone.
to talk about, oh, sorry, didn't even give you a chance to say hi.
Hi.
There you go.
Hi,
Today
Annette.
we're going to talk about depression because I was talking to Renee about how I've been talking with different people lately, and it seems like depression is something that's very much a reality of our day with COVID.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
and
Many
people
conversations
are fighting
around
it.
it. Yes, I agree.
So we wanted to make sure that we just had a chat about it. And I want to do the disclaimer first that Renee and I are just having a chat. We're sharing ideas, suggestions, sharing stories possibly, but we're not giving you any medical or mental health advice. So with that
Correct.
said, Renee, there's the disclaimer. Let's talk about depression and
Yeah.
the stigma that kind of surrounds it. A lot of people don't want to even admit that they could be depressed, mildly depressed, severely depressed. There's all different levels of depression, but it seems like nobody really comes out and says, hey, I'm struggling with depression right now. And if they were to do that, boy, that would help you in the beginning of your conversation because they were being open and honest with you for sure. But why do you think there's that stigma within, especially the Christian community? At least
Right.
that's where I
Yeah.
really find it big time.
I've seen it big time in the Christian community, just with like leaders, or just people within a church. If there's not an openness, then they think they've got to be perfect. Well, I got Jesus, I got faith, I got this, or I'm in charge. I can't look like I'm a failure. I can't look like I have problems. I can't look like I have depression. Therefore, I can't tell people when I'm struggling, you know? And there's such a falsehood to that, such a such a lie we believe as a leader, as anybody in any kind of group. We think that we have to have it together or we won't be accepted. That's pretty unfortunate.
That's very unfortunate. And to go ahead and
Yes.
stuff it down only means that it's going to just grow even more being incubated like that.
And what's
So,
worse could be on the other side of it. On the other side of it, being a person that sees someone that's depressed and we don't know that they're depressed and we label them wrong. You know what I mean? We see them and we see their behavior and we assume it's something else.
that could be pretty dangerous because
Mm,
be very hurtful to the person, definitely, because it will look very
yeah,
judgmental. That is for
yeah.
sure.
So if it would be easy if just everyone who had depression just said it, but who wants to admit that? You know what I mean? There's a lot of falsehoods around there, and you were talking about that earlier. Um,
Yeah,
I
so
think
let's
there's
talk about
for
some
you
of
to
those falsehoods. Some is that people think depression is just somebody having a pity party, self-pity. Um,
mm,
they're comparing their situation with somebody else's situation. And so they think that they're just
mm,
feeling sorry for themselves. And that's not what depression is. Can you think of one?
yes, yes. I would say another one that is thrown at others would be they're a little messed up in the head. They need some meds, a chemical imbalance. I think they just need, get some medication and then they'll be all good. I've actually seen that. I've heard others say that. Now, yes, depression for some can be helped with medication, but for others, there's an emotional thing. Maybe that's a triggering of a past experience, and something just flared it up and shut them down and sent them spiraling to depression that not necessarily needs a medication for it. Um, I actually saw this, someone who I was talking to at a family event. They were going through something, they were struggling in marriage. And I can't remember what the full emotions were, but the person told me that a medical worker across the table just said, just get on some meds and get over it. I was like,
Ouch.
what? That, yeah, and it did. It hurt that person to get that kind of response. Instead of being listened to and instead of being heard, meds were just thrown at them. So, I'm throwing out that disclaimer of
The falsehoods here.
that's, yeah, it's a falsehood, and be careful of how you suggest it if it is necessary, because boy,
Absolutely.
it can come across very,
Sensitivity is
very
huge in
wrong.
this area.
Yeah. So what?
Another falsehood would be lack of faith. Because if we're Christians, then we should be trusting God to, emotionally hold us together and to lean on his promises and stay positive and all of that. And when you look up Job in the Bible, you saw that he had so much loss, and then he had that long illness. So he was in pain, and he was struggling with depression all during that time, but yet he still had faith in God. So it shows that it's not because of a lack of faith type thing. So you could just put that falsehood on somebody. And it comes across very judgmental. If I say, well, Renee, you just don't have enough faith, you'd be going,
I've actually been told that in different situations. I was told I didn't have enough faith, and that's why when I went blind, why I didn't get healed. It's a line that's used improperly in many situations, and depression definitely is one. And even those of us who are optimistic, we need to be careful, because we try to put our rainbows and our hope and our faith onto that other person instead of staying where that person's at. Can I share like a cartoon? Would this be the time to share that, or cartoon picture? So, as an optimistic person, what I used to do, even right after someone would die, and I'd go and visit, and it's like, how can I encourage them? It was always in my head, I got to be the encourager. And I didn't always know when the right time was to be that encouragement, though. And I remember seeing a cartoon snippet, and it was right along the same time when I saw one about Eeyore and what is that, Winnie the Pooh?
Yeah.
And Eeyore is always the woe is me guy. But this was a cartoon character of like a manhole and a tunnel underneath it. And this person or this character was at the bottom in this darkness. And it showed like in one of the squares, person's at the top, with his head down into the manhole, hey, cheer up, whatever. And the end of it, the snippet was the one that was originally yelling down, trying to send the cheer down. They realized it's not working for the person depressed. They needed to walk down the manhole, down the stairs, and just be present with them. It wasn't about all the words, and it wasn't about all the actions and bringing them balloons, whatever. It was just being present with them. And that was a lesson to me of sometimes we just got to be present with someone. It's hard because I have people in my life right now that are depressed, and I just want to know how to serve them and love them well. But I know I'm just supposed to be present. And I'm still asking God, how do I respond? How do I serve? But that was one of the first lessons I had to learn. And it took a cartoon to teach me,
That's a great cartoon, though. Very powerful. It's a powerful picture. Yeah, because
sometimes our words can hurt. And sometimes we do judge and we misinterpret people. I think you had said that you've got some other falsehoods, some other lies.
Well, another one that's common is that the person is they're just weak in their willpower. So they just need to get over it and move forward. And it's not dealing with their willpower. Again, if they're telling you, I'm depressed, you know how much humility it took for them to go ahead and even share that with you. And for you to just come alongside them and go to God together to help in this situation is huge, but it's not a willpower thing. So that's just another falsehood. So
definitely a falsehood.
What we say to people during that time, like you said, going to God and saying, God, give me the words. Please give me the words. Because for everybody, it's going to be different. I wrote down some words that I had heard over the years, especially during my teenage years, where I really struggled with depression. And one of my favorite ones was, and I could see why they were doing it. They thought because of my personality type that they should be tough with me and just saying, you just need to snap out of it, that would work for me. But it did absolutely nothing except make me feel more defeated. If I could have snapped out of it, I would have snapped out of it type thing. So for them to say, just snap out of it, that would have done it. Right. Or try to think positive. Okay. That didn't last too long. I tried to think positive, but that didn't last too long. It's all in your head. Like, oh, God, see, I am to blame. So it just made the darkness even darker. You have nothing to be depressed about. You have so much more than anybody else. Your life is so good. And they were right. My life was better in a lot of different ways than other people's lives. My life could have been worse, but then I just felt guilty and shame for being depressed, because I shouldn't be depressed, because people are telling me I shouldn't be depressed, because I have nothing to be depressed about. It was like this vicious circle.
Yes.
And my favorite one was, a lot of people have it much worse than you. No. Yeah. Can you think of one thing
sometimes we use
shouldn't say?
Something you shouldn't say. Nothing is coming to mind right now. Just, I think my own experience is coming to mind, that I didn't even realize I was depressed. So
What was that?
It could be somebody. I didn't realize it until now. I was an adult. I was pregnant. My second pregnancy, I was crying a lot. And I was noticing every time I went to the doctor, I'd be crying. But the doctor didn't do anything about it. And I never thought about it until years later. My kids are grown and married now, but as I've been working with other people and them telling me their story, almost more recently in the last 4 years or so, hearing different people's stories, I'm going, wow, I kind of resonate with that. And I resonated with somebody's story of their depression. Wow. And it was back at that time when I was pregnant and all the tears. And I thought, dang, if I had recognized it, maybe I could have said directly to the doctor, hey, I'm depressed, help me. But instead I was just boo-hooing of worrying about, oh, is my husband going to help me change diapers? Are we going to have enough money? Are we this? Are we that? I was swirling in all this emotion. Yeah, pregnancy adds to that. But just so much emotion. And what I've learned that depression was not just being scared of having 2 kids now to take care of, but it was fear from my past that was now coming up, and I was just beginning to deal with it. So that was later on top of emotions of pregnancy and stuff like that. But a lot of times I've been told to snap out of it, or just buck up, or put your big girl panties on and move on, kind of thing. And from those around me that have been depressed, it's not a wake up and you can solve it kind of thing, Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If we could snap out of it, shoot, while I was pregnant, I could have snapped out of it. But there was a mental thing going on. I was swirling in this reality that I thought I was living, of what my future was going to look like. Yeah, I couldn't solve it. I couldn't solve it in my head of what was coming. It looked like gloom to me, and it looked more difficult because the baby was in me versus out. Once he's out, it's going to be even more harder. But so I thought. I can't remember how I got out of that depression, but the only thing I can think of was it had to have been God. Each time that I've had a difficult time and when I've sought the Lord, he has helped me get back to reality. Not that depression is not a reality. I don't want to put that stigmatism on it either, but it helped me, I guess, restructure my thinking. It was hard. It was very hard.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that story.
Thank you for sharing yours.
It probably would have been helpful for somebody to say, Renee, just talk to me. What's going on? And for you to list off, and you go, it's too many things probably, or whatever it is. But if somebody would have just sat there and listened to every thought that was just swirling in your overwhelmed mind, your very hormonal body, and to be able to process, would that have been helpful?
It would have been very helpful. And I think that's probably a lesson to me with folks in my life, you know, not just those that I work with and disciple, but family members, friends, whatever, you know, asking a simple question of, instead of assuming, just asking a simple question of, how are you feeling? How are you really feeling? You know, or what would you define this as? Because if I was just asked those kind of questions instead of just brushing me off because I was the weeping pregnant girl, you know, I was brushed off as hormonal. I guess that's the word. I was brushed off as hormonal and exaggerating. And I can catch myself doing that as well to other people of, they're just kind of in their self right now. They're just trying to be self-serve. They're not motivated. Depression is a much more than a non-motivation place. You know?
Absolutely. It's got all different levels. It's got the beginning and it's got these deep valleys. And if you're super in there deep, it just seems like it takes a lot to come out. And definitely having people pray for you to have it lifted is huge, as well as you being willing to humble yourself to say, I need help type situation. Another thing I had on what people could say was, what can I do to help? Or this must be hard. Tell me more about this. I loved when people would say, you know what? I love you. I know you're going through a hard time. I don't know what to do for you, but I wanted to let you know I love you. I care. You're important to me. Those were life-giving words. Even though it wasn't solving my depression, it was small little lifelines that were just watering my soul. And that's huge when you're in that spot.
I think what also can help is, what I've seen a lot is somebody's lost a loved one, or something big has happened, you know, something has happened and they're in this situation. A lot of times we'll respond, and you see it on Facebook all the time, you know, just call me, I'm here for you. You know, just reach out. You're telling the person who's hurting to do the work, you know, to do the reaching out. But what if we were to be the one to make that phone call? What if we were the one to make that drive-by and drop off a meal? What if we were the one to do it instead of waiting for the person that's depressed or lonely, or, you know, this is bigger than the depression thing. If we were more active versus judging, I think a lot of things could be solved, and being more present than waiting for them to reach out. And then another thought that comes to mind is, know when you're starting to go there, and
be self-aware.
Yes, the self-awareness is really important. And maybe even having that, you know, your little list ahead of time written out of, hey, can you just check up on me next week? Or would you be willing to check up on me once a week or whatever? Or if you know the winter months are difficult, like I heard this a lot in Seattle. When we lived in Seattle, I heard a lot about depression because there was always, once a day, there was at least some kind of rain, other than the great summer months. but depression was kind of big in some of the areas out there because of the weather. And I know you were talking about that as well here in Indiana. Now that you're a California babe, originally.
Living out here
Now
out in
you're in,
Indiana, yes.
so talk about that, even just depression from weather and how to.
Well, I didn't realize that I was getting kind of irritated, just kind of losing my joy. And a coworker noticed it and said, why don't you go to the botanical gardens? It was in the wintertime about 5 years ago. And I said, I don't feel like it. I got a lot of work to do here, and we're just going to press ahead. And you go, I'm not going to deal with you anymore today. You take off, you go to the botanical gardens. Tell me what you think of it. I've never been there before. And I'm thinking, why would I go to the botanical gardens? Well, he knew I loved to fish. He knew I liked being outside, but I didn't see it in myself. And we had had several months of snow, and I don't like the cold. So I really wasn't going outside much unless I had to go grocery shopping, in, out, or back home, that type of thing. And so I went to the botanical gardens. I had an attitude. I spent $5 to start walking through the darn thing, and I ended up going into one of the rooms, and it was a California room, and it was the California desert. And it just reminded me of California, and the room was hot. The ceiling was all glass, so the sun was just shining in there brightly, and all the plants were from California. And it brought me such peace, and I was able to relax and just had a wonderful conversation with God. Nobody was around. And I ended up, when I left, buying a year's admission for my husband and I to go to the botanical gardens whenever we wanted, so we wouldn't pay $5 every time we went, to just go ahead and walk through the tropical part or walk through this other section. It's a beautiful botanical garden, but it fed my soul. And I didn't realize that was something that would help me mentally and spiritually, because boy, I was able to reconnect with God so fast there. And I'm just so thankful that this friend was so determined to push me out the door to go. So yeah, knowing what helps you mentally when you get in a situation where you're just at that beginning stage of being depressed is huge, or in the middle of being depressed, knowing those things. And you had mentioned a list before of writing down a list. Go ahead and talk about that a little bit more.
Well, we call it, in a way to joy, we call it fill in the bucket. Yep. Filling up your bucket, and the thing that I know that helps me is, it's not just my basics of making sure I get the supplements in, making sure I get my meals made. Those are self-care things I have to do, staying on my regimen so that internally and externally I'm healthy, because I'm dealing with a mold illness still, detoxing. But I love nature. And so I do drive my husband crazy. So in the winter months, which helps, is not driving him crazy, but what helps me is I'm pulling all the blinds open like crazy. If I can't go outside, I've got all the blinds open, so I get all the light that I can that just comes in. Even if it's not a sunny day, there's light that will come in through the sky. And so, yeah, there are no windows uncovered during the daytime. And of course, Eddie comes in, he's like, why is everybody looking at our house? Because Renee needs light. I need light for my soul. I need light for my eyes, because I've got one that works, one that doesn't. There's just something about light and needing that to fill me. And that also fills my nature need as well. If I can't be in it, grounded in it, I want to be able to take it in through a window, so that's something. And so the knowing what fills your bucket, even like creativity, like I know sometimes I've got to do things with my fingers, or like my brother, I bet you anything for him, it's that playing with that lathe and making something with the wood. And I know you talked about something with your bedroom. We can close with that, share what you do with textures and colors that fill you, and why is that important?
Well, maybe you could even see in my office here, I got splashes of color in different places, because color means a lot to me. Color keeps my mood up. Color reminds me that there's a world outside functioning when I'm in here typing and writing up books, as well as my bedroom. It's bright. It's got shiny objects in it. It smells good. It's got wonderful soothing colors for me so I could relax in the evening time in there. So these are things that are important to me so that I'll want to get out of bed in the morning, so that I'll want to open my eyes, even if I'm feeling depressed or whatever it is. So those are things that I use. One thing I wanted to touch on real quick, I love making the list of different things that, and if you're not sure what it is that you're thinking that would be good for you, other people might know that surround you. So you could ask your family members, what is it you see that I do that makes me happy? And I know you, when you're creative, and Renee, you all of a sudden make a t-shirt into a dress, that's a happy moment. I could see that just being creative, doing that little thing. It's the same over here. But not to use alcohol or drugs to get you out of that depressed mood, because it will only last for a short time, and then you got to do it again. So you got to make sure you are choosing healthy things to take care of it, and make sure you're not shutting yourself away, keeping active. I like how you said eating well and making sure that those basic things are done. I remember you even saying, I got to take my vitamins. It makes a big difference for me. So
Huge.
absolutely, those types of things are huge. Well, let's wrap it up here. You have any last thoughts, Renee?
No. The only other thing I thought was to add to somebody's list is, if you feel like there's not an activity you can do, like when I was really ill, I would put on this thing on YouTube where it was just verses that would just play this soothing music, and they were verses about healing, and it gave me hope, so that I wouldn't be spiraling in this I'm never going to get well mentality. And of course, I'm dealing with a physical, it was a physical disability.
About 15 hours in bed a day.
I was, and my body wasn't moving, not because of depression, but I physically couldn't get up and do things. So having something to hear, at the time I couldn't read because it was jumbled, but I could at least hear. And so a thought that's just coming to mind is find that YouTube that's a 2-3 hour thing, and just put it on play so you're hearing it. You're hearing the word, you're hearing the encouragement. The other thing is that I thought of was even shows. Like for some people, when you were little, maybe you were wishing you were a dancer or that Olympic skater or the Olympic person, put those on. Find those videos and play those, because I know it can make your heart skip and stir a little bit of butterflies in your stomach. Oh, I used to want to be that, or oh man, to be able to do that. That can stir some life back into you. Is just a thought during the winter months, or when you're not able to be mobile for some reason. Just another idea
right now because of COVID and the holidays coming up. Absolutely.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks for the discussion, Renee.
Thank you, Renee.
Okay.
You're
We'll see you
welcome.
guys next time. Bye-bye.